also because it's one of the first events that we're trying to get back to normal. So I think it's important because it's not the same, of course, when on screen in two-different dimensions, so many things are happening, not only outside the event itself, but also even in the event.
Yeah, and there is no, there's not
see the reaction.
Exactly. And
They always
multilateral meetings. It's trying to do.
I was just reading my email.
difficult in such a room, but in a small room it's kind of to do. Like where we were small, we can change it.
And then the first week, for example, one food.
Sorry.
I was asking again about the rules for the mask. Then another week, I think it went up to Europe and other only I think it was 3 weeks, not 4. And then another one was Asia, Pacific Asia. And it was 3. I mean, somebody was saying that if you, even the people who listen, if they don't see the news, then
Much easier. We were born for the jet because we are additionally by the
normal life. And then
even if I speak the morning or not
yeah.
for this kind of thing,
I think we're going to
all the world now for the jet.
but saying that
Yes, now
I don't think there's a
when we have a delegation of 4 people with the CEO.
because they were saying
Will be
sometimes
it's close to us, but it's the mission in a way in New York from the perspective. So
understand better.
at least I don't see much limitation.
Anyway, if you prefer to keep it, it's up to you. Okay. But if you want to take it, you have to know only good.
Good. I just noticed in the printed version of the program, the times are actually wrong. All half an hour late now. And we realized that we had just organized a side event, and people were arriving half an hour late.
Really?
Yes. I mean, they're on. Yeah, for all the conferences. But this is, I don't know if everyone has this.
Explain our product.
Just printed out,
Oh,
and they were giving it an information.
Copy we want to get according to the specific program.
I read it wrong a bit. At least we were confused. We were wondering if
We will do something.
the online service is fine. Video reference as well.
Ruben is saying that on the program it's listed at 4:30, but I don't think so.
Oh, it's 4, huh?
It's 4.
Oh, because there is a 5:30 another meeting, so it should be normally articulated.
40s.
Common name in Uganda.
Yeah, really. It's,
We have a colleague with the same name.
oh, you got a colleague?
We have a lot of colleagues from Uganda.
I
I don't know if it's a coincidence or not. Because we have no project in Uganda, but a lot of researchers, so we're working with them.
My phone starts screaming.
One of them is Moses, but he left us already.
Va bene.
It's also his surname. I was wondering maybe.
Yeah, well,
It's
So many.
two parts of the country, western and eastern.
a specific place where we
Yes,
You are there.
after right, in order of appearance. And you know,
yeah, speak after you.
there you go. Shall I?
That's me.
I don't know. It's very little people. But
That's my first World Forestry Congress.
yeah, from his end.
Yes.
Maybe you can share.
Of course.
Yeah, I think anyway the organization is taking care of all this video.
It's a long way, so people need time. between one room and the other.
Yeah, yeah.
But on the other hand, if you wait too long, you lose the online audience.
Let's see. I'm gonna start, yeah. I'll start. Okay. Hello. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to this session. Hopefully we will have a few more people joining. Meanwhile, I do some opening remarks for this session. First, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Marco Piazza. I'm a forestry officer at FAO's Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, and I will be moderating this event, which is titled Towards Open and Transparent Reporting and Dissemination of Forest Data. This is the first session under sub-theme 5, which is on managing and communicating forest information, data, and knowledge. And during the week, there will be 4 more sessions on this topic, so I also encourage you to attend the next sessions. So covering 31% of the global land area, forests are vital ecosystems that provide food, energy, shelter, and income to people around the globe and support diverse plant and animal life. They also play a central role in combating climate change by absorbing and storing carbon from the atmosphere in their vegetation and soil. Despite the important services they provide, forests remain threatened by deforestation, forest degradation, and other factors. In fact, between 2015 and 2020, the world lost an estimated 10 million hectares of forested land per year. Such loss not only harms those communities and animals dependent on forests, but also releases stored carbon and threatens to exacerbate climate change. So the alarming rate of global deforestation highlights the need for better forest information to guide policies and decision-making that will strengthen protection and preservation efforts and ensure that forest resources are managed sustainably. There are many international commitments, including the Paris Agreement, the Sustainable Development Goals, the Glasgow Leaders' Declaration on Forest and Land Use, and the Post-2020 Biodiversity Framework. They all have recognized the value of forest and the need for more reliable and open access forest information. So to promote this such transparency, the Enhanced Transparency Framework, ETF, under the Paris Agreement, builds upon measurement, reporting, and verification system developed under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. So while the ETF does provide flexibility to developing countries, starting in 2024, all countries who have ratified the Paris Agreement will follow a single common transparency process. This uniform system will build mutual trust and confidence that countries are making progress towards their national climate targets. Availability, accuracy, completeness, consistency, and comparability are the guiding principles of the Enhanced Transparency Framework and of forest monitoring. So many countries already collect, analyze, and disseminate forest-related data through robust national forest monitoring systems. We call them NFMS. FAO, with support from its partners, has already helped over 50 countries to establish and enhance their NFMS. So with these fully functioning and multi-purpose systems, countries can respond to their own forest data needs and effectively report on forest emissions and removals, as well as track climate actions. FAO has also proudly supported countries and FMS through the development of innovative tools to measure, monitor, and report on forest and capacity development through various programs and projects. One such FAO-implemented project is called Building Global Capacity to Increase Transparency in the Forest Sector, also called the CBIT Forest. This is funded by the Global Environmental Facility. So this project has helped to boost institutional and technical capacities, allowing countries to strengthen forest monitoring and reporting and spread knowledge through webinars, trainings, and learning materials.
Beyond NFMS and related projects, FAO also has supported the production and sharing of information related to forest and forest resources through the production of the Global Forest Resources Assessment, FRA, and having a clear global picture of the world's forests and how they are changing over time allows for the development of strong environmental and climate policies, practices, and investments. In today's panel discussion, we will learn more about the CBIT forest projects and the latest upcoming FRA. This panel, which includes representatives of countries and international organizations, will explore opportunities and challenges related to building greater transparency. Uganda, Mexico, and Brazil will detail their ongoing efforts to increase the collection and dissemination of forest data. Notably, Uganda became in 2021 the first tropical country to openly share its national forest inventory data. Further, we will learn from research on implementing a national forest inventory in the Republic of Korea. I think I can... one less, yes. We also learn from research on implementing a national forest inventory in the Republic of Korea and using remote sensing data to map tropical forests. So today's session presents a wonderful learning opportunity through which we aim to raise awareness of the great need for open and transparent forest-related information and to highlight that credible and consistent data are key to tackling global challenges like climate change. We hope that today's session serves to expand and continue discussion around data transparency and further disseminate this important information. So without further ado, we are delighted to have here with us today Mr. Dirk Nemitz. He will be the keynote speaker for this session. Dirk Nemitz is a team leader of the Agricultural, Forestry and Land Use Unit in the UNFCCC Secretariat, and today we'll take a more in-depth look at the new reporting requirements for countries moving towards the enhanced transparency framework under the Paris Agreement. So Dirk, please, over to you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. First, a large and really meant, coming from the heart, thank you to the Korean Forest Service and the FAO to organizing this Congress under the still prevailing circumstances. I think it's not a small feat. And thank you also very much for inviting me, and good afternoon to all. I will talk a little bit about the enhanced transparency framework and how it relates to forest data. Of course, I have to clarify a little bit what is the journey to what we call the ETF. What is transparency under the Convention of Climate Change? The evolution from the old measurement, reporting and verification to the new ETF. What is specific on forests in the Paris Agreement? And I will touch on the importance also of institutional arrangements. Let's go first into what is transparency? Transparency means countries report data on their climate action, especially emissions and removals, on a regular basis to the UNFCCC, and also on their actions and on their needs for capacity building, technology transfer, and climate finance to take further action. Now, it's often, I get the question, why do we do all of this? If it's just for sending a report to the UNFCCC every 2 or every 4 years, and meeting international obligations. What does it mean for us? And I can only refer to the left side of the slide here. It is really important to understand why many countries are gathering this data on their own, because it's useful for land use planning, it's useful for forest management, and it's how you can do informed decisions in your management. It informs the policy planning, which policies are effective and which are not. It can also help to access support provided for climate action in the forest sector and building capacity. And also it can raise awareness on activities both nationally and internationally. What is the country actually doing on forest and climate change? Just very quickly, The idea of the Paris Agreement, the basics, is that every country reports, or every country reports the nationally determined contribution. What are they aiming to do to address climate change? They submit reports to track whether they have achieved what they wanted to achieve. And there's a review and a facilitative multilateral consideration of the progress. And all of that input, together with other global input, goes every 5 years into what we call the global stocktake, which can inform countries when they make new NDCs, new nationally determined contributions. So that's the basic cycle through which the Paris Agreement ensures that there is enhanced ambition over time. The importance here is to see that many countries have built already structures for measurement and reporting of climate data, but especially also forest data. And I'm just showing this very shortly to show that what is happening now is not that new. Developed countries have reported biannual reports and GHG inventories in the past. Developing countries had biannual update reports and partly also REDD+ results reported. And all of these underwent review for developed countries and technical analysis for developing countries. What is changing now is that there's really one system where every country is supposed to work towards reporting every 2 years to the UNFCCC under the same guidance and rules, and with flexibility for developing countries and countries that need time to build their capacity. The important part here is also to understand that there's flexibility built into the system. While everybody is working under the same rules, it is also very clear and recognized that not all countries have the same starting point. And we can see this very clearly in forest data, where some countries have 200 years of forest inventories that they can build on, and institutional arrangements that have been standing for equally long, and others just started maybe a decade or 2 decades ago to work in a more systematic manner on gathering forest data. One thing to emphasize is, and that's why the work of FAO on enhancing the transparency is very important, 2024 is not far away. 2024 is the timing for the first biannual transparency report from all countries. So it's really important to now take the steps, now make the decisions, now do the analysis, what kind of data is available in the country, bring it together, and building on the existing reporting structure, measurement reporting structure, to enhance the capacity towards submitting the first report under the Paris Agreement. What do we have in the Paris Agreement specifically on forests? We have a whole article that deals with ecosystems, and especially forests, and it has 2 sections. One is forest in general, and the other one is REDD+, more specifically. It's, I think, very important that there's a reference to global forests and a reference to the continued work on addressing deforestation, especially deforestation through REDD+. It sends a strong political signal on the importance of ecosystems when addressing climate change. And it reassures parties and other stakeholders that the implementation of the existing climate change mitigation approaches, which have been built up over a decade or partly longer in the forest sector, is encouraged and is recognized by the Paris Agreement. So these efforts should continue and should be renewed and not be replaced. Further specific considerations for the reporting on forest data. Many of you may know the Kyoto Protocol, where there were very distinct and specific rules for reporting land use change, and forestry. We don't have this anymore, but there are 3 specific paragraphs that emphasize the importance of transparency on specific aspects in forest reporting. These 3 areas are natural disturbances, harvested wood products, and the effects of age-class structure in forests. And I don't want to go much into detail, but everybody who has worked with forest data in the past will see that this, being able to report on these points and to have a transparent measurement and reporting approach that can fulfill the IPCC reporting requirements on these points will require capacity in the countries and will require data that maybe not all countries have at the moment. and a special emphasis on the Warsaw Framework for RED+, which continues. The national strategies for RED+ are still encouraged. The safeguards are still very important, and the transparency processes related to RED+, where the reference level is specifically separately assessed, and then the results are assessed and entered into the UNFCCC Info Hub for RED+, are also continuing as recognized by Decision 1CP21. Just from our work, one point to emphasize is the importance of institutional arrangements. And in the past, many countries have reported only every 4 years or much more irregularly. And if they build up ad hoc capacity, it's very often difficult to know what was reported in the past, how was the data collected, what were the methods and procedures, or even finding disaggregated data again. So we hope that a reporting cycle of every 2 years will help especially the forest sector to build institutional arrangements and capacity for a robust national forest monitoring system that allows regular reporting. But it can also form the basis for the country to make informed decisions about its own forest sector. It should and must be country-driven, and but it can be informed by the experience of other countries. And that's why exchanges like this one are very, very important, so that the countries can get in touch with each other and can exchange and can build up follow-up activities to talk to each other. The best preparation for the future, which is 2024, submitting the first report, is really starting today, because sometimes these processes take longer than one would expect. There's a lot of further resources on the MRV and the movement to the Enhanced Transparency Framework on our website, so I can encourage you to go there. And a final encouragement, and that slide I think will be available later, is for undertaking the review of national reports, we need technical expert reviewers in the UNFCCC. And I think this is also a key opportunity for experts in the countries, especially those working on the forest data in the countries, to exchange and to train, to learn what other countries have been doing, and in an expert review team, to really know how to analyze data, what will happen to my data after I submitted it, and exchange with other country experts how difficulties can be solved. Key messages from our side at the UNFCCC: the Enhanced Transparency Framework really is the foundation of the Paris Agreement, and this has to build up in the countries over time. Forests play a key role in all aspects of the agreement. I could go further into how they are also important for adaptation, how it is important that they play a role in climate finance, technology transfer, and other aspects that are also covered by the Paris Agreement. But in the interest of time and the topic of the session, I limited to forest monitoring and data. Countries need robust institutional arrangements, including national forest monitoring systems, because these are fundamental to achieving multiple national goals in addition to reporting to the UNFCCC. And building your skill set in the countries is extremely important now. And if you want to be engaged in reviews under the current MRV, this would help you to build tremendously capacity towards the Enhanced Transparency Framework. I thank you very much, and back to you, Mario. Thank you.
Okay, if I can speak from here, many thanks, Dirk, for your insights on thank you. On the transparency framework, which, as you mentioned, as a journey, as an evolution, as an evolving process, and also underlining the importance of forests in the aspects of the Paris Agreement. As I mentioned before, we are delighted to have here today a panel of experts representing both international organizations and countries. So I would like to start with Mr. Pascal Martinez. He's a senior climate change specialist of the GEF. His work focuses on agriculture and forest, and he contributes to the implementation of GEF strategies, supporting countries to meet their commitments in the framework of international environmental agreements. And he's also leading the GEF works on sustainable forest management. So the way this panel will work is I will try to stimulate with questions the various panelists. So the question to you, Mr. Martinez, thank you for joining us, first of all. If you can please tell us more about the work on transparency that the Global Environmental Facility is doing, and what are the ongoing efforts and which are the challenges that countries are facing at the global level in the forestry sector. Over to you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank the organizers and also the Korea for the invitation. This is very important that after the 2 years of difficulties that we have gone through, we are able again to have this kind of gathering. The GEF is the financial mechanism of the 3 Rio Conventions. So it provides grants to developing countries to support them in the implementation of the conventions. So as a consequence, the GEF is not implementing itself the transparency work, but support countries to do so. And this includes all the conventions, relevant sectors, energy also, when it comes to climate change, and forest is being one of the important topics that we are dealing with. And then in all these conventions, there are several transparency, I would say, works. For climate change, we support national communications, the CBIT, it is the core of my presentation later on, biannual transparency report. On biodiversity, a revision of NBSAP, a production of national reports to the CBD, also national reporting obligations under the Cartagena Protocol and Nagoya Protocol. Well, in land regulation also we have national reports, also the incorporation of the LDN into existing national planning frameworks. So all this to say that the transparency work for the GEF is quite wide, and it includes several kind of support to the countries. And when it comes in particular to climate change, we have several kind of support or project. Of course, one is a capacity building initiative for transparency, which is a very important one. It has been operationalized in 2016, so it's not so new, but not so old neither. The CBIT was created as a request of the parties to help strengthen the institutional and technical capacities of developing countries to meet the enhanced transparency requirements. The CBIT has 3 key objectives: strengthen national institutions for transparency-related activities in line with national priorities, provide relevant tools, training, and assistance for meeting the provisions stipulated in the Article 13 of the agreement, transparency, and finally, to assist the improvement of transparency over time. So these 3 key objectives are really what we want to see in the project proposal that we receive from the countries now. So the GEF provide this funding to support countries through the CBIT, and as of March 31, the entire CBIT portfolio of the GEF includes 81 projects covering 79 countries. 1 is a regional project and 5 are global projects, including the one that has been you have mentioned before, Marco, on forest in particular. And the total envelope in terms of amount is $131 nearly million. And the AFOLU sector in particular represents 37% of this CBIT project. And we have now the biennial transparency report also that we need to support the countries. And this is part also of the consideration when we have to include forest-related data. This is the BTR is relatively new, and the GEF Secretariat works now closely with the countries that request support for their preparation. To date, the GEF have approved BTR support for 11 countries, and 9 additional countries have been submitted to requests for GEF support. In addition, the GEF has worked with UNEP on a large umbrella program submission to be submitted in June, now, nearly. This umbrella program will include funding for up to 62 new BTRs, 26 of which have already received a letter of endorsement from the countries. So GEF Secretariat is working closely with these countries and GEF agencies to provide timely support with the view to allow sufficient time for countries to prepare and submit their BTR by due dates, because it has not to be later than December 31st, 2024. So we have been working mainly, the BTR is new, CBIT already, we have a couple of years of experience and quite important portfolio of projects. So we have already could draw some key lessons, I would say, at this stage. First, it's very important that we can have a coordination between the different institutions related to forest. The project shows that important arrangements need to happen at national and local level. The different roles to ensure transparency need to be linked and coordinated from the data collected by government entities and private sector until the synthesis and finally the reporting at national level. This enables this coordination enable to build on existing initiative, and this we don't see this always in the project proposal that we receive, especially when it comes to link with the RED Plus national strategy, for instance. And very importantly, all the projects that we receive needs to be very well aligned with the NDC, and it's not always the case. Sometimes they focus on one sector which is not the main contributor to GHG emissions. Technical and human capacity also is very crucial. Well, it is why we have this kind of project, CBIT in particular, especially in forest sector, because globally the AFOLU sector is very complex to elaborate national GHG inventories, MRV systems, and also national forest monitoring systems. So depending on each country, some are more advanced than others, but in general, much effort needs to be put in place to increase the technical and human capacity. It's usually the most important part of the CBIT project in terms of funding. Knowledge management also is very key. And this has also been touched upon by Dirk recently regarding the capacity to create links and knowledge sharing and tool sharings between countries. And this is what we are trying to develop also through this global or regional project. And one global especially on AFOLU and forest sector. So it's not only global, but also specialized in this sector in particular, because it's a challenging sector on this regard. And also we need to link with other sectors, because the country needs to report on all the sectors. And when you receive CBIT project proposal by the country, sometimes it's only focusing on AFOLU sector, while the the country has most emissions in energy sector. So there is no alignment. In this case, we don't accept the project proposal. So it's very important also. And good news, GEF 8 is around the corner. It will begin the 1st July this year. We have great support from donor countries. We expect an increase of the global envelope of around 30%, so 29% at this stage. And so GEF will continue to support the transparency work of the countries as many other things. And in particular, GEF will support the countries to make them the transparency framework ready and able to have the capacities for the BTR submission, in particular to UNFCCC and in due time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pascal. I think it was good to hear all of the work, current and future, of GEF. Some impressive work and some impressive financial effort, as I see. We, as FAO, have recently collaborated on the CBIT Forest, as I mentioned before, which has proved to be very successful collaboration and project. So let me go to the next panelist. Mr. Pekkarinen. Okay, I can wait. Yes, Mr. Anssi Pekkarinen, he's a senior forestry officer at FAO, and he is the coordinator of the Global Forest Resources Assessment Program. He specializes in forest inventory, remote sensing, and geographic information system, and he's also one of the founding members of FAO's Open Forest Initiative. So Anssi, again, thank you for being here with us. Can you please tell us more about FAO's work on transparency and in the forestry sector, and which are the ongoing efforts and future development in your organization? Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marco. And let me also start by thanking the Korea, our host country, and the World Forestry Congress Secretariat for giving us this opportunity after 2 years to see some colleagues that we haven't seen face to face since, which seems a long, long time. Let me start by this CBIT project that Marco, you mentioned, and Pascal also referred to, which aimed to strengthen the capacities of the developing countries to collect, analyze, and disseminate forest-related data. And during this project, we focused really our efforts on helping the countries to meet the transparency requirements of the Paris Agreement. And some of the lessons learned during the last 2 years are: first, we learned a lot about the value and need for open data platforms. As some of you may recall, the FAO Global Forest Resources Assessment is based on the data reported to FAO by the countries through a global network of national correspondents. And when we published the results of the latest Global Forest Resources Assessment in 2020, for the first time, we made all the data and metadata reported by these national correspondents to FAO available to everyone in digital format. And that means that anyone, anywhere, can now access those data and use them for their own further analysis. This project that was mentioned helped us to improve the platform and also increase its outreach, because we actually translated it to all 6 UN languages. And now, during the last 1.5 years, we have had more than 30,000 individuals accessing the Global Forest Resources Assessment 2020 data. And as this is a rather specific tool and data set, I think that that's quite a remarkable achievement. Now, what comes to this data sharing, FRA platform hosts mainly country-level statistics. There are some other statistics that may be subnational level, but those are in the metadata section. But essentially, FRA collects national-level statistics. But of course, we have some users that want to share and access also more detailed data. And for this purpose, FAO has another service, which is called Food and Agriculture Microdata Catalog. And before this project, it did not host any forestry data, but now, thanks to our colleagues who will speak later, the repository actually has a dedicated section for forest inventory data. It's not very rich yet, but we hope that this serves as an example, and in the future, the countries are more and more willing to share their data through this platform. Overall, what we have noticed is that there is an excellent momentum for increasing the transparency and sharing of forest-related data and metadata, and that the technical, administrative, and legal solutions to do that do exist, but we just need to learn how to use and how to sustain them. Then moving to this direction, of course, does require a lot of training and capacity development. But again, we have a good lesson to share. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to move to a fully virtual modality and sort of reinvent ourselves. And the great thing in that is that it worked out very nicely. And in collaboration with our corporate structures, with the FAO's e-learning academy, we developed a number of different e-learning courses that are made available to a much larger audience that we would have reached with the traditional capacity building events. And they will also stay there for a long time for the new users to visit. What comes to the future that Marco was referring to, we are of course keen to continue this sort of work, and we want to enhance the quality, timeliness, accessibility, usability, and transparency of forest-related data, both at the national and global level. At the national level, that means that we will continue the capacity development to support the development of national forest monitoring systems, as well as the development of open source tools, again with this sort of transparency approach, for field data collection and satellite data processing and analysis. At the global level, we will continue our work on reducing the country's reporting burden and facilitating the reporting through digital tools. The reporting platform that we introduced in FRA 2020 will have a number of improvements that will further improve the quality, accessibility and transparency of the FRA data. And also, which is a big change that we are preparing now, as requested by FAO members, we are designing a more flexible reporting process that will allow more frequent voluntary updates of key forest-related indicators in the future. That is that when country has new data that has become available, they will be actually, they can actually update their data sort of on the fly to the FRA reporting platform, and they don't need to wait for another 5 years. Of course, then we are also planning to strengthen our collaboration with the other forest-related reporting processes to further enhance the alignment and information exchange among these processes in the future. Thank you so much, and back to you, Marco.
Thank you very much, Anssi. You started talking about the importance of open data, which is something that we all sharing here. This is the main point in this panel. Also, the evolution of the FRA system, the FRA reporting. And if we just compare the way it is now compared to how it was 5 or 10 years ago, there's a significant difference and a much more open access to all the users. And then you also, I like that you mentioned the momentum, which is not just driven by international requirements, but also I think the countries share the same feeling, the share attitude towards open data, because they also see the benefits of doing that. So, as I mentioned before, besides international organizations, we also have countries represented here. So let me start with Uganda. We are lucky to have here Mr. Bob Kazungu. Mr. Kazungu works in the Ministry of Water and Environment as the Principal Forest Officer, and he is the National REDD+ focal point for Uganda, and he also coordinates the implementation of the National Forest Monitoring System of his country. Mr. Kazungu, thank you also to you for being here with us. Can you please tell us more about Uganda's work on transparency and which are the ongoing efforts and future needs and challenges? Over to you, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Marco, for that great introduction. Yes, and also pleasure indeed to be having been invited as Uganda to share our experiences with the National Forest Monitoring System work that we've done for some, a few years ago up to now. Uganda, as you may know, is the Pearl of Africa. The Pearl of Africa because it's demonstrated, the fact that though we have deforestation rates rising, but we still have a significant amount of forest estate that we can sustain and improve on. As a way of background, Uganda is one of the few countries in Africa that has concluded its readiness phase for REDD+, and that phase ushered in the development and construction of the National Forest Monitoring System, which is one of the 4 elements of REDD+ readiness. And that was with support from, technical support from the FAO, and thanks to the FAO for that. And the National Forest Monitoring System work has been institutionalized in the country, in the sense that all the institutions relevant and necessary to implement a National Forest Monitoring System know their responsibilities and roles to play. Some time ago, before the CBIT Forest Project came into supporting the additional improvements on the National Forest Monitoring System, Uganda was the first African country to submit results voluntarily, REDD+ results, through a technical annex to the BUR. And for us, that was a plus. And having understood from the different engagements, the importance, from the Paris Agreement, Article 13, the importance of enhanced transparency in our data management. We were very much willing when we got invited and of course accepted to be part of the CBIT Forest project so that we can improve on how we report. I know that is 2024, 31st December, but this is the time, like you rightly mentioned, for countries to prepare. So we've been, working with FAO on a CBIT project, and some of the things that we have done there, which are extremely important, is to assess the needs, both capacity institutional needs for the operationalization of the National Forest Monitoring System that we had constructed sometime in 2019. So this CBIT Forest project starts in 2020. And during the time of the high peak of COVID restrictions, we worked very hard with the FAO teams, technical teams, to be able to do, that that capacity needs assessment for institutions, but also for, terms of technical capacity for us to have data collected, data analyzed, and also look at what needs to be done with the National Forest Monitoring System. We also did undertake what we call an impact assessment, the first impact assessment of our National Forest Monitoring System. And so we had developed a questionnaire, an impact assessment questionnaire, which, is a tool that is used to tell why this data is actually being accessed by the different partners and stakeholders in the country and beyond, and also within institutions. And that is very key for transparency, because who is accessing the data is extremely important for transparency. How is this data being utilized is also extremely important. The other aspect that we started to work on, which I would like to share with you, is the important need to have a data sharing protocol or data management protocol for all the data, forest data, that we are working on through the National Forest Monitoring System. And so a sharing protocol is in place. We are still improving it with conversations, the different relevant institutions, those that are relevant for the justice, the legal elements of data sharing, and those relevant for forestry and agriculture and the other sectors that have data for forestry. What I would like to mention for Uganda is that forestry data is found in different institutions, and even the private sector is one key source of this data. So for us to be able to have a conversation with these people in a more formal, official way is a good thing for us to have data available and also data shared. So we've been engaging in developing and concluding this data sharing protocol for all that time. But right in the middle of our implementation of the CBIT project, we actually observed that there was the farm catalog with the FAO. It's just been mentioned by Ansi here. And Uganda was actually the first country in Africa also to share our data, under the farm catalog of FAO. And that is a demonstration, I must say, of the openness and the transparency that we have with us sharing forest data with other people. And we are actually improving that as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bob, for your intervention here. I think you mentioned how Uganda is first country in a number of categories, as you correctly pointed out. So it's very good to hear the success of the work in your country. Also, I think you mentioned, I picked up a few key points which are the very core of forest monitoring and reporting. You mentioned about it's important of who collects the data and the importance of training to actually get the source of the original data in good shape. You also mentioned about data sharing protocols, and this is something common in many countries, that data are a bit scattered around different ministries. So this process of aggregate and find agreements between different ministries is crucial. So again, thank you for sharing your experiences in your country. I'd like to move now to the next panelist, which is Mr. Humberto Mesquita. He's representing Brazil. Mr. Mesquita is Director of Forestry Development at the Brazilian Forest Service, and he is specialized in modeling forest structure from remote sensing. Similar to the other panelists, Mr. Mesquita, can you please tell us more about Brazil's work on transparency and which are the ongoing efforts and future needs and challenges? I believe you have some slides, so I will come to you and give you the pointer.
Okay, thank you, Marco, and thank you for FAO and to be here after this long time of pandemic. And I would like to share with you what Brazil are doing and what we got and our achievements and some challenges that we need to transpose. From 70s, Brazil starts to do the first survey of renewable resources in Brazil. This data was transparent and open for not only for Brazilian, but still, until now, some people still are using this data because it was very good survey of our Brazil, our country, with good information. In the 80s, Brazil starts to produce an annual monitoring of Brazilian Amazonian with satellite images, and also at this moment it was not transparent, but we start to produce and to give for the population a number of how is the amount of deforestation in Brazil. In 2000, many things changed, and we start to use digital systems. We improve the way to produce the data and also to transfer all this data to become public for the not only the result, not only the deforestation number, but also the satellite images, the shapefile, all the information that the people could use to analyze, to process this data again. And then we start to have a very good also community of criticism and using this information, producing new information from the information that the government gives. And also after 2000, we start to develop many other systems for fire, for detection, rapid detection, for selective logging, for many other systems. In 2003, Brazil made a law that it's a law very important for us because for environment, all data, after the government, the central government give for the state government, they empowered to license the activities of forest activities, the states need to give back this data for the central government, for the national government, and also to give this for all the population. Then it was the first law, the beginning of the law of transparency and open data in Brazil. And it moves many organisms in Brazil to open the data. In 2006, the Brazilian Forest Service, where I work, was created, and the main purpose of the Brazilian Forest Service is to develop the sustainable use of the forest in a new way, because we still have some ways, but on this new way was only for public forest, and we need to do the forest use was very sensible. All the law for Brazilian Forest Service creation was very, very transparent. There are many articles, I cannot say everything for you, but we need to share and to even all the process of concession need to be transparent. the results, the numbers, and the amount of money, amount of trees, each tree that is taken, and everything need to be very, very transparent for the process get a success. Now we got a success. We are almost to get 20 years of concessions. And in 2010, then Brazil decided to have an open data law for every data of, every public data that is produced. And then they changed the way to think about the data. If the data is sensible, the high level, I mean, the minister or the high level needs to express why this is sensible and why need to be not open, because everything needs to be open. And then it also changed a lot the way that we are producing and sharing data in Brazil. In 2010 or 2011, we started to do the National Forest Inventory. At the beginning of the National Forest Inventory, most of the effort was to collect data much better than to show data or to give the results. And now, in 2001, we started a project at CBIT, supported by CBIT, and with this project, we could improve our capacity to open the data, not because of the law, because of the systematic way that we are producing and collecting data. And now we could improve a lot. We have more than, for instance, for the 11 states that we have data collected finished, now we could open the data, the national forest data, for 5 states. It means that our data that we use to produce the results, we are available for anyone, even for you, that you can go to the National Forest Information System of Brazil and access this data. Then we have our data available for these 5 states, and then in near future we have for our data, all states that we collected data. And the main idea of this project was to build up a relationship between National Forest System and also the remote sensing collect earth system. Because many of the challenge that we have to produce results in the meaning of the upscaling results, when we need to, from the ground, get one result for all the country, we need to have a specific approach. And then we are using these high resolution images, and each interpreter is looking just for one image of high resolution and giving up a lot of information about the context of the National Forest Inventory sample point, and that this very high resolution information can provide us information about the context of this forest. How long this is this fragment, how is the influences that this fragment have. That was very good for us to also improve our capacity of analysis. Also, with this project, I mentioned all of this data that I mentioned, DBH, all the information of the tree are available. And also we did a kind of, because for each point that we go, we need to take pictures of that. Then we build up a catalog with more than 200,000 pictures about the 10,000 sample points that we collected data. It means that we have a lot of pictures, and you can go and navigate from these points of Brazil, and also see each point that we did the collection of National Forest Inventory. To finish, I would like just to say that Brazil also are trying to improve the repetition of our forest inventory to get a better view of the monitoring, the meaning of monitoring forest, not only the monitoring by satellite image, but also the monitoring using our national forest inventory. Brazil doesn't finish the first cycle yet. It's a very large country. We got some problems now during the pandemics, but we are improving, and we hope that in the next 2 years we will finish about 75% of Brazil. Yeah, is that what I would like to talk with you and show a little bit what we are doing with transparency and how to improve this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Humberto. I think we said we spent good words for Uganda, and we should do the same for Brazil. I think both are countries that are accumulating a lot of experience and can be an example for other countries or for other people that are following us. So reach out and learn from countries that are maybe a couple of steps ahead in this process. So thank you again. Let me continue with our program. We are glad to have Mr. Alanis de la Rosa representing Mexico. He's connected online. Thank you for also joining almost halfway or 3/4 of a way across the world. Thank you for being with us. Mr. de la Rosa is a manager of Mexico's National Forest Monitoring System. He's responsible for coordinating the implementation of the National Forest and Soils Inventory, the Satellite Forest Monitoring System, and the National Monitoring Reporting and Verification System of Mexico's National Forest Commissions. So many roles. I will ask the same question to you. Can you please tell us more about Mexico's work on transparency and which are the ongoing efforts and future needs and challenges? Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to let you know that I will make my presentation in Spanish, so please, if you have a receiver, change it to Spanish, please.
Thank you, thank you. I believe we are equipped for that.
Okay. Buen día. Del Gobierno de México queremos expresarles nuestro agradecimiento y reconocimiento al Gobierno de la República de Corea y también al Servicio Forestal de ese país y a la Organización de las Naciones.
Yes, thank you very much. On behalf of the National Forestry Commission, I would like to congratulate you on the event and thank you very much for the invitation. So then, let us now go into my presentation on the forest monitoring system of Mexico. Mexico has an area of more than 137 million hectares covered by forest vegetation, of which almost 68 million hectares correspond to temperate, humid, and dry forests. More than 12 million people inhabit the forest areas, and 4 million are indigenous people.
Issue. I think it would help. Just take your time, but just maybe a little bit slower. Thank you, and sorry for interrupting.
No problem.
Muchas gracias.
Comentaba que los bosques en México son muy importantes.
Yes, so what I would like to say is the reason why this is an important topic is because out of the 11 million that already inhabit the forest areas, more than 4 million are the indigenous population. So you can see that this is key. And not only that, if you look at the communities and the farms, they own 48% of the forests in Mexico. From 2004, the Mexican government, through its National Forestry Commission, began implementing the National Forestry and Soil Inventory, the INFIS, which is a public policy instrument of the forestry sector. And this is defined as a key data that has to do with national prestige and prominence. You can see that we have this inventory for the entire nation of Mexico and encompasses all forestry and soil-related information. And we collect the information every 5 years, where a report is also generated in the process. From 2004 to 2009 and from 2009 to 2014, we have results reported that you can actually see and refer to. And for the period of 2015 to 2020, it's currently being formulated and it will be available of June of this year. And you can refer to the information on the website of the Mexican government. The National Forest and Soil Inventory has been the basis for public policy planning, and it's also key when it comes to us generating national reports, especially looking into the enhanced transparency framework of the Paris Agreement. You can see that the information of this inventory is key in the process of generating such reports. So then, let me now move on to what kind of challenges exist for the Mexican government. With regard to the inventory process, the very first challenge is that many different stakeholders request information on the forestry sector, but it's very difficult to timely respond to these requests. The national, subnational, local government officials, academia, researchers, the civil society organizations, and general public request information, and it's very important to respond in a timely fashion. So that's one challenge. And when referring to the National Forestry Commission, what we also have to do is provide information on a subnational and local levels to help them design and implement policies, programs, and projects. So it's key to respond to these information requests. We're seeing increased reporting commitments as well as frequency, both nationally and internationally. And I'm pretty sure that it's pretty much the case in other parts of the world, but insufficient human and financial resources are a major challenge when engaging in forestry monitoring and to collect field data. So once again, we don't have enough or capacity to collect timely data. And there's a growing availability of remote sensing information. However, it's true that we need the right high-skilled labor to utilize such information and collect and analyze such information. So once again, I would like to mention that there are these innovative tools for analysis, but we need the right human resources that can make use of such tools. Not only that, we believe that it's important to make sure that the forest landowners and the communities take part in community-based forest monitoring. So that's also another task at hand. And we need to make sure to induce further collaboration of the public so that they utilize mobile devices, smartphones, to monitor any devastations of the forests. So I think that they can play a key role in monitoring. We want to continue to encourage the monitoring by the community. And if they do take part in the participation, I believe that we can find a way to resolve the difficulties that come from collecting field data. And we want to propose the following based on the lessons we have learned throughout the years. We believe that going forward, the forestry monitoring system and the inventory needs to be institutionalized or at least supported by a legal domestic framework, and only then can we seek financial resources or investments or financial support from the government. And I believe that it's important to continue on to induce collaboration with the public, the private, with the community, civic organizations, and global institutions. Collaboration and cooperation is key when it comes to collecting data. Meanwhile, the information that we need and the scope of the information that's required is something that we have to define clearly if we want accurate and meaningful information. With regard to data transparency, we need to make sure that we document the data collection and the analysis process. In other words, the approach, the methodology, the tools, the estimates, premise, all of this has to be documented. So for data analysis, analysis and collection, we need to standardize tools if we want to be consistent. So that's also another lesson learned. Another aspect I would like to mention is about the report of the inventory. We need the right communication strategy when we want to share such report or deliverables. It's important to make sure that we have the right resources to make sure that this is well communicated to the public or any interested parties. To share knowledge, I think that we need collaboration and cooperation. So at the end of the day, it's about cooperation. And with that, let me conclude my intervention. Once again, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Alanis. Thank you very much, Alanis, for sharing also the experiences from your country with many insights and recommendations. One point that I wanted to underline is the involvement of the civil society and the local population in the monitoring and in the concept of open collection and open sharing of data. I think this is quite important because often they are, at that level, the people who are really the users of the forest resources. So it's good to, that you underlined also the effort in involving the civil society. So thanks again to you and to all the panelists for their intervention. We will have a chance for questions if you're interested, if you want to take this chance, this opportunity to ask our experts something. But before doing that, we have two more interventions from authors who are joining this session with voluntary papers. We know that there has been it was quite a long process for selection. So first of all, congratulations for being selected, for submitting and being selected, and we are very glad to have you here on this panel. The first paper will be presented by Ruben Weber. He's a research scientist for the Thunen Institute of Forestry in Hamburg, in Germany. Ruben, the floor is yours. And I think you have the pointer for changing slides already. Yes, very good.
Yes,
over to you.
Thank you, Marco, for the kind introduction, and welcome everyone. In my short presentation, I will just be summarizing our work, which is an example, actually, of how, from the research point of view, the open and transparent dissemination of forest data can contribute to the developing of the monitoring capabilities of forests in the tropics, particularly. So our results are published online in the website of the Congress, and this paper was written together with my colleagues from the Thunen Institute of Forestry in Hamburg, Germany, Melvin Lippe and Sven Günther, also present here. And these results are actually based on an open access research article published recently on the Journal of Remote Sensing of Environment, which was written together with the colleagues of the Laforet project in 3 countries, namely Ecuador, Zambia, and the Philippines. So then the number and quality of forest maps have increased in the last decades drastically. This was mainly due, as it was mentioned here, for the progress in the field of remote sensing, but also the developing of the national forest monitoring capabilities worldwide. However, we observe some limitations in tropical countries, namely the applicability of these maps, especially at local level, due to the lack of reference data, but also constant cloud cover through the year, and also difficulties in finding the appropriate physical thresholds which match the different forest definitions related to forest condition, or also the different regions or forest ecosystems in the different regions. So in our paper, we wanted to check the quality of freely accessible data, namely national maps produced by the national authorities of the 3 countries we worked with, but also global forest maps across regions and also forest types. With this, we wanted to achieve conclusions for the monitoring of forests in degraded landscapes, but also for forest restoration. So our work, one of the key points was that we conducted an extraordinary campaign in collecting ground data, reference data from 2016 to 2019 across 36 landscapes distributed in 9 regions of the 3 countries. This is an unusual approach, normally due to logistic and operational challenges, but we were able to collect over 18,000 control points and also georeference photographs, which allowed us to digitize more than 19,000 hectares, which include information on forest disturbance history, but also on land use. So with this, we could validate the quality or the accuracies of five global forest maps, commonly used and referenced, but also the main land cover maps produced by the national agencies of the countries we work with. These are the maps commonly used for international reporting for FIO, for instance. So we observed clear difference in the dynamics across regions and forest types, which already suggests the potential of remote sensing in distinguishing degradation stages, for instance. And we also observed much better accuracies of the national maps. This actually highlights or suggests also the improvements in the last years that have been made on the and the monitoring capabilities of the agencies in the 3 countries we worked with. However, we also observed decreased accuracy. So for the total sample, we observed around 92% overall accuracy of the national maps. But this decreased drastically more than 10% in areas of advanced deforestation or early reforestation stages, also especially for regrowth forests. In these areas, we observed discrepancies between the compared sources up to 41% of the total area analyzed. So these results suggest, first of all, to use these global and national maps, despite being a useful and important key source of information, to use it critically, basically, to avoid extracting wrong conclusions, not only on forest extent, but also on its condition. And as our results show, this could be especially relevant in these areas with current forest restoration initiatives take place, namely in these advancedly deforested or early reforestation areas. So we also claim that the open and transparent dissemination of forest data can contribute to reduce these uncertainties, namely by, for instance, sharing information from different sources or different forest maps, as we saw, but also by sharing reference data from the ground, which is very important, about updated state of forest, which is a precondition not only to generate or create maps of improved accuracy, but also to validate the estimations with a better verification capability. So thank you for your attention. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ruben, for your intervention and also for adding the academic angle to this conversation, which of course is also very important and has a potential of contributing significantly. Let me go to the second voluntary paper. It's presented by Dr. Yeonsu Yim. He's a research scientist at the National Institute of Forest Science in the Republic of Korea. Mr. Yim, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Marco. Today, I would like to introduce our national inventory systems for assessing forest resource and supporting greenhouse gas inventory. This slide shows a brief history of our national forest inventory. Our government began its modern NFI system in 1960 through the help of the UN Special Fund and the UN FAO. I would like to thank the FAO for their support again. It is 1971 when Korea started in its first NFI on each one. Since the first NFI until the fourth NFI in 2005, there had not been big change in forest inventory system process. For example, we used producing a forest map through area photo interpretation, and also we applying striped sampling design based on forest map. as global agreements such as UNFCCC, UNCBD, UNCCD were adopted in the Rio Convention 1922, the global society has been encouraging its demand for the more detailed information on forest resource. So in order to meet the global demand and produce more detailed forest data for forest policy, our government changed its NFI from the PIS NFI, reorganizing the NFI system with use of systematic cluster sampling, design, and also expanding inventory items. In particular, the inventory items of recognized NFI include all carbon pools, such as biomass, dead organic matter, and soil organic matters. And also record all tree species and understory vegetations appearing at the sample point in order of biodiversity. In the recent HNFI, we also used on electronic field note and automatically record data on the tablet at the same time in the field, such as an open policy by FAO. And we also try to pilot study to using the CD scanners such as TLS is being developed to collect efficient and accurate digital forest map. Second slide is show the key result is the 7th NFI as of 2020. I have just 4 slides for result. First is the change of forest area, and second is the proportion of area of forest and age class and growing stock and carbon pools. As you can see, there have been a downward and trend on forest area because of the increasing population and urbanizations. So over the last 50-60 years, on average, 7,000 hectares declined annually. And next, regarding the proportion of forest area by age class, most of the forests in Korea are distributed over the age of 31 years because of legacy effect to the National Reforestation Project in those 1917, 1980s. It was found that this imbalance of area of age class undermines sustainable forest management and also the net removal of greenhouse gas by biomass. And in 2020, the amount of carbon stock by carbon pool is 900 million carbon stocks. In Korea, since there are a few information to carbon changes in the litter layer and soils over time, currently we will carry out to monitor the changes by carbon pool over time. And more forest information is currently needed in the National Forest Inventory because forest is globally getting more environmental and social values, such as carbon sink and economic values like timber production in the past. We'll therefore provide more information and also improve the accuracy and efficiency of collecting data by applying ICT technology. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much also for your contribution to this session. It was nice to see the many NFIs. Not many countries can say the same thing. So many NFIs and increasingly getting more expanded and more relevant to what are the needs of the country. So thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you to all the panelists. We have some space, some few minutes for questions. If anyone wishes to do so, I think somebody can assist you with a microphone. This is the time if you want to get a bit more information out of one of the panelists. Or simply raise your hand and yes.
Hi, thank you. This was great. one comment and one question. The comment is, I work for the U.S. Forest Inventory, and we've invested a lot of money in time in standardizing and distributing our data in a standardized format, and we found that our stakeholders really start to rely on the data, and they build their own infrastructures and systems that ingest our standardized data. So it's kind of like Google, you know, like if they give you all this free stuff, and if suddenly they took away Gmail, we'd all we'd all fall apart, right? So it's kind of like that with our forest inventory data, and you know, so the dependence they have on it helps build support for the program with funding. I do have a question, and that is with the transparency of the latitude and longitude data. If you're distributing the latitudes and longitudes along with of the plots along with the data set, do you worry that the landowners will treat those areas differently, or do you worry that maybe other researchers will visit the plots and perturb the natural regeneration of the forests?
Thank you very much. Very relevant question that we have discussed, at least in our teams, a number of times. Who wants to take this? Maybe Humberto, please.
Yeah, we got a lot of discussions about this kind of problem, and not only this, but also if somebody cut the tree, because we say this is the type of tree, and also how amount of wood we have in some place. But this is a very long discussion about open data. For instance, in Brazil in 2009, we discussed about the land tenure information. And also there are people that said, no, it's not good to give this information, because then if the government say where is the information about the land tenure, maybe the illegality will increase. But the problem is, in the fact, after this information become available for the people, more people start to look what's going on and keeping these areas also. In the meaning of the inventory, could be a sensible information, but I don't think the people that could change the land will care about that, because we need, when I go to the land to ask them, can I go inside and to measure your forest? They said, okay, but they continue looking what we are doing. Then we put a bar of aluminum inside of the land. We ask many of questions about perception of the forest, the use of the forest. They know that we are there, where is the sample unit, and if they will change the behavior, even for keep this area, oh, this is the area of the National Forest Inventory, or otherwise change that, the openness data will not matter anything, because they keep this land. Most of the area is under private property. In the public properties, we don't have this kind of problem, because if it's a conservation unit, it's protected, and we have a better control on these areas. I think my feeling that this is not a problem. We discuss a lot, but we couldn't give, as I mentioned to you, if we want to do a kind of say this is a sensible data, we need to have a very, very good explanation, and who will sign for that will be the minister. Then the minister says, oh no, it's difficult to become sensible data. Mainly for personal data or something like this, then they turn sensible, or financial, fiscal, but other data, most of them are turning to become open.
Thank you, Humberto. You wanted to intervene as well, Ansi, please?
Yes, thanks. I just wanted to mention one discussion that we had with the European Forest Inventory Network folks the I don't know, last year. And some of the countries mentioned that, you know, their national forest inventories are based on sort of combination of two different types of plots. One is permanent sample site, and the second one would be temporary sample site. And they said this treatment bias was discussed very thoroughly in that meeting, but those countries, or at least one country, said that, you know, for these temporary sample sites, it doesn't really matter because the location will change, and then, you know, there will be no treatment bias, and they expressed their interest in sharing. That just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anssi. Christoph?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I have a very simple question, and that could be answered by just one figure by each of the forest inventories. What is the rate of non-response? Because we were talking about stakeholders, about forest owners, and recently it came to my knowledge that the non-response rate in the US NFI is over 9%. Over 9%. And that is mainly due to denied access. And I will compare that now with the figure in Germany, where I'm coming from. Sorry, my name is Christoph Klein, and I'm coming from Germany, University of Göttingen. It's 1.7%. In Switzerland, it's 3.5%. In Austria, it's 4.7%. And in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, there is no problem with non-response because of denied access, because we have a legal regulation that allows the inventory teams to enter also private lands. So, would be great if we just can hear 4 figures from Uganda, Brazil, Mexico, and Korea. What is the non-response rate for the fieldwork? Thank you.
Go ahead if you know the answer.
Okay, I think let me go fast. We tried to actually assess that, and what is very true for Uganda is that we've not been denied that much access to even the private lands, but largely it is because of the process. How do you get to access these pieces of land? Because we know very well that there is always a contentious issue around land, and officials accessing that land, there can be suspicion. So because we know that normally happens, we have a team that involves both the local leadership of those areas that are involved in data collection. They are part and parcel of the teams that are going out there at the countryside. The local council 1s, 2s, and 3s, all of them are informed about the process, and some of them join the teams as they go out there to collect data. So in terms of percentage, we tried, our technical teams tried to assess about 3%, but did not affect most of our data because of the homogeneity of our areas in terms of what is actually on those pieces of land. Uganda has had a permanent sample plots for a very long time now, for decades, that we've been tracking. Yes, we have a few that have actually been damaged, but when we looked at the assessment analysis, it did not affect the results in terms of the accuracy.
Thank you, Bob. For the sake of time, I need to be quick. If we can hear figures in a short, because we have only a few minutes before the next session.
Okay. Now, just a few words that in Brazil, it's in general, it's 10%, less than 10%, but it varies a lot, the region by region. For instance, now we are coming to inside of Amazonian region, then we got another kind of problem. Some sample points around in areas of illegality or dangerous areas of mining or something that we cannot go inside, and this become a kind of problem. In the south of Brazil, we got less than 10%, And also we have some strategies to deal with this when it happens in Brazil for the National Forest Inventory. But, and also we do a lot of campaigns with agriculture people, municipality, and we try to advise every people that we are coming, that we are working on there, what's the purpose, and usually we don't have problems to go inside of the properties. No,
Thank you, Berto. Thank you. Can we get a figure from Korea and then I close? No? Okay. All right. We have a next session coming up very quickly, so just very briefly, I wanted to thank again the panelists for sharing their experience. Thank you for the audience, both here and online. I hope today's session has inspired all of us to take further steps towards transparent production and dissemination of forest-related data. We learned that with more consistent, accurate, and transparent data of forest, we can make better decisions which will help to conserve and use our forest in a way that secures a sustainable future for the planet and for us. Thank you all again. Stay safe and have a good rest of the week. Thank you.